All right, guys, welcome back to Laconian Concepts. Thanks for stopping by. We're gonna go over today my sleep system, kind of more in-depth look at it. I know I kind of went over a few videos back, a general overview of a bunch of the pieces that I use, but I wanted to go specifically over the bag system itself. I've acquired these things over the last couple months and I've had some time to use them and test them out. So this isn't gonna be what I call a long-term review or anything like that, but just kind of going over specifics of the items. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get started. Little shout out. If anyone knows me, they know I like, other than the outdoors, beer and coffee. And so this one's a little homage to one of my favorite places that I went with. A lot of good buddies, a couple of guys were in the ravine video, but Icicle Brewing is the place we stopped after we hit the mountains up at Lake Kolchak. So, hazy IPA. So, essentially what I'm going to be kind of going over, like I said, is my 3-season sleep system. I have it all packed in here, and as you can see, that's probably, I don't know, a good foot by 8 inches or so. That's uncompressed, but that's the entire system. So inside of that, the individual stuff sacks here, I've got the Snugpak Special Forces 1 with Reflectotherm, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I've got the Snugpak Special Forces Bivvi and the Snugpak TS1 Liner. So it's a 3-part system. This is just something I got on Amazon, just testing it out. It's a little heavy, but it fits the whole thing, so that's kind of why I went with it. We'll see how that works out for me. So it stuff's in here really nicely, actually, but you can kind of get an idea of sizing-wise. What I like about the tiered system is that you can add or take away parts to suit your needs based on whatever the conditions are that you're going to be facing. So obviously for winter, I would choose something else, but based upon conditions, climate, I live, like I said, in the Pacific Northwest, and most of the year it's pretty wet. The places that I go, it tends to be very wet. I go up in the Olympics quite a bit. With that being said, what I chose was a synthetic bag. Now the Special Forces, we'll start with that. Kind of take this part out here. So the Special Forces 1 sleeping bag, it's a central zip. It's kind of reminiscent, if you can see in the background here, I have the US Army, the Modular sleep system, and it's really similar to the patrol weight bag. And so it's comfort rated 41 degrees. I'd say that's pretty accurate. So in the ravine video, it was around 40, between 40 and 45 at night. And at one point I got a little bit chilly. I wasn't uncomfortable, but I did wake up one time. Basically, it's a hooded style mummy bag. They use on the outside what's called Paratex steel plate. And something that I've noticed about Snugpak gear, especially when you get into the higher end or the UK made stuff, is that they've kind of found out some voodoo magic to make very soft, light materials that are very durable. So I mean, it's the idea with it, I guess, it's abrasion resistant on the outside, but still feels like much better than the Army system, much better than any other bag that I've handled before. And it doesn't have that real shiny type of nylon that a lot of like the high-end down bags use. It's, I don't know, it's just very soft. But on the inside they use what's called the Paratex Light, and this stuff is like silk. It still has that cold to the touch nylon feel that you're not going to get away from. More on that later, but it's very, very soft, and it's a lighter material. The big draw with this for me, I'm a hammock camper 90% of the time, and I like to joke that the other 10% is when there's no trees. But the center zip was the big draw for me. The weight on the sleeping bag itself is, I think, 2.6 pounds with the stuff sack. So there's that. I know the fad right now with sleep systems is quilts, whether you're sleeping on the ground or in a hammock, top quilt. And I get the idea you know, you're laying on the insulation, so it's not doing you any good. However, the one thing that I can't get behind with that is I really like the hood. And then a lot of people will say, okay, we'll just, you know, they make hoods that you can get. And it's like, well, if I'm getting the hood anyway and adding the, like, I just want one piece. So I really like that this has the built-in, you know, it's a mummy style bag, so it has the hood. And because, like I said, in Washington, the main thing that we're dealing with is moisture, whether that be rain or just the humidity or anything like that. The way I mitigate that is I like to close down just, you know, kind of around my mouth, but what I like that hood for is to cover over my eyes. It just helps me, you know, sleep well. And I just like that it's all built in. And in the hammock, the center zip to me just is like absolutely perfect. I had said earlier, I used the military sleep system for years and had no problems with that in performance, but there were some things that lacked, and I'll get to kind of the comparisons between this system and that when I've gone through all the pieces. Another cool thing about this bag is it has a reinforced foot box. Just puts, you know, a additional layer of this little bit heavier nylon in case you wanted to wear your boots inside the bag. I don't, but I like that the option's there. Another really cool thing that I like is they put these little tie-outs, like little paracord loops, in the end of the foot box in a couple different spots. And what that connects to is any of the liners that they make. The last thing that I want to talk about in the bag itself was that reflectotherm. So basically what that is this bag uses the Softy insulation, which is Snugpak's proprietary insulation. It's similar to Apex or Primaloft or anything like that. It's similar to random filament fiber synthetic insulation. And like I said, for 3-season use, I like the synthetic because I know that I'm probably going to be dealing with moisture issues, whether that's my own. I sweat quite a bit. So in the summer, not having to worry about that matting any down insulation. In the other 2 seasons, spring and fall, there is so much rain, especially when I go up to the Olympics, that I just like the peace of mind having this, and for not needing the warmth value in those other seasons, it seems like a good trade-off to me. So the reflectotherm, back to that, is essentially they took that same insulation, and if I understand correctly, they shredded up a space blanket and added those materials into that extra layer and added that around the entire bag. And the idea with that is that it all those metallized particles reflect the heat back to you. For how thin the bag is, it is very warm. So yeah, that kind of goes over the bag. It has your normal accoutrements. It has a baffle. It has you know, the zipper stay so it doesn't snag the zipper. But it does pretty well, just you know. And what's actually another cool feature about it that I forgot is they have kind of these like tear open zippers. So if you need to quickly get out, which I have a problem wanting to get out in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping because I'm usually so warm that it just seems ridiculous to get out, even if I have to go to the bathroom. So I'll usually wait and wait and wait. And then if I absolutely need to get out, I usually need to get out pretty fast. So I like that. And especially being in a hammock, it's a little harder to get out. So I just like that it has that kind of tear open. So next we'll talk about the Bivvi itself. So this Bivvi was designed to go with this sleeping bag. It has a central zip as well. And that's the main difference between, they make 2 different Bivvis. They make a just regular Bivvi and then the Special Forces Bivvi. That is the only difference, is that it has a central zip. It's made of the same material. It's called Paratex Dry, and it feels like a very thin nylon. A lot of people get their kind of panties in a twist over how light this is. I've read a bunch of reviews on Amazon, and they think that it's cheap just because of that. And I have not put it under extreme conditions myself yet. I've just, you know, kind of been using it since I've had it, which is only a couple months, just on regular outings. But one guy I know, he slept on rocks and branches and just no care, doesn't even put a ground sheet down. Said that it held up just fine. A couple people of note, Paul Kirtley, swears by this Bivvi. I would say he knows what he's talking about. And then another guy is Dave Canterbury. He holds one of these in his like kind of bug out bag. His beginnings may be contentious, but the dude definitely knows what he's talking about, and he can choose anything he wants, and he carries one of these. So I came from the military sleep system, like I said earlier. That's a Gore-Tex Bivvi. It is phenomenal. It adds a ton of warmth. It's waterproof as all get out. You can throw that sucker right on the ground. The drawback with that is that it weighs over 2 pounds. This, on the other hand, this Bivvi only weighs 14 ounces, and I think that's including the stuff sack, which I'm not using. Although I'd say, if I had to guess, it's a wash. 3 stuff stacks versus 1, they weigh about the same. But I just like having the system all together, and I can just rip it out and it's ready to go. So that's why I went that route with that other stuff sack. The cool thing about this, to me, is that it's so light, and it's an added protection for me, whether I sleep on the ground, in a hammock, it doesn't matter. I can use this, and it's going to be an added layer to block out wind and to block out any residual moisture that my shelter doesn't take care of. And I'm kind of designing this modular system to be a system that I can, on a distance hike, if conditions or the environment changes, if I need to sleep on the ground, I can. So I'm trying to incorporate items that if I have to carry it, it's not going to be a huge weight penalty if I don't use it. So another cool thing about that central zip system is, and it's a pro and a con, but is that it's a half zip. Now, the sleeping bag itself is a full zip all the way down, and I guess it maybe the last 8 inches or so doesn't have a zipper, so it kind of makes a little foot box, which I'll get to later. With the zipper, you're compromising because that's a point where moisture can come in. And they've taken great lengths to mitigate that with this, but I like that from the knees down, it's completely sealed. Another thing that is kind of neat about this system, the Gore-Tex is definitely warmer. It adds a great deal of, I'd say probably 10 degrees of warmth. This, on the other hand, only adds about 5, but I'd say that, perceived may vary a little bit because it also adds a fair amount of wind block, which the Gore-Tex does as well, but I don't know. I find that, like I said, weight versus performance, I much prefer this. This is less than a pound, that's 2 pounds. So there you go. Okay, so they've incorporated this flap system that goes over the zipper, as well as, this is what is really neat about this. They've got this unique little kind of like fold over, and anywhere that water may run into is going to continue to run down this little fold, or go that way, which obviously I guess would go in your face if it went that way. And really, if you had to sleep completely exposed in this, I would probably sleep on my side or on my stomach just to block out. But I like that they thought of that detail. And then when you zip it up, you have that little flap just as an added protection. So, I mean, it's completely enclosed while having a zipper as much as possible. Lastly, we're going to talk about this guy, which is not in its final form yet, but I have just this weekend tested this out in combination with this system, and I had to get out of it because it was so warm. So this is Snugpak's TS1 Liner. They call it thermal suede, that's the TS. And my wife has a Sea to Summit Thermalite Reactor fleece liner, and it feels very similar. It's really soft to the touch. It doesn't have that weird coldness that nylon does, which is really cool. And then the outside is a little slicker. And the idea is that the different pills wicks moisture away from your body, dealing with, like one side has big fibers, the other side has small fibers. Path of least resistance, it follows it to the outside. So that's really cool. This does a couple of things. It adds, I'd say, conservatively 5 to 10 degrees to the bag. But then on top of that, what it does is it's something that's easy to clean, it's machine washable, that it keeps my bag clean, which prolongs the life of synthetic bags. It's the same with synthetic and down, really. I don't know why people get all uptight about it, but if you sleep in it repeatedly dirty, and even just your oils will degrade the thermal properties of the bag. So anything you can do to prolong that is beneficial. The one thing that I'll say about this in its current state, that's good, is that it does not have a zipper at all. I'm going to change that. I like to modify equipment, and I've done some modifications of these too, just small things. I think I went over that in my other video. Basically, I took the little metal parts of the zipper off, cut them off, and then just put paracord pulls on them just to get rid of the jangle. And it's a little lighter too, but you know, half of a gram if anyone's counting. The other cool thing about this liner is with those little tie-offs on the inside of the sleeping bag, this has paracord pulls at the end of the bag to tie into the bottom. And the idea with that is that you will stop it from kind of getting all tied up. So in its current configuration, and this is probably why I will modify it, but the best way to get in this is to kind of shimmy into it first. And because it's so slick too, you just like slide right into the bags. And I'll probably modify those too. I have, let's see, ITW makes this thing. So it's called a tack toggle. But what's neat about that is you can put a piece of cordage through it and you turn it sideways to slip it through a paracord loop, and then it'll stay. So I'm probably gonna grab a couple of those, tie those onto these ties on the end, and that way on the loops inside the bag, I can just flip it through and they'll stay. I don't have to fuss with it, don't have to tie anything. Pretty soon here, I'm gonna add a zipper. I'm gonna do central zip. I'll do full zip to match the sleeping bag in case I don't use it with the Bivvi. And then, like I said, the idea with it being a tiered system like this is that at any time I can pick and choose, leave something at home, or I can, you know, add to the system as I see fit. In the summer, it does get warm here for at least a month or two. And when it gets warm, what's cool about it being a central zip too is that I can just unzip it, flip it on top when I'm in my hammock, and use it as a top quilt when it's hot if I want to have a lot of airflow. Or I can turn it over in the spring and fall, zip it up completely and just really tuck in. And I foresee that I'd probably use all three at the edges of spring and summer, the edges of spring and fall when it's still pretty cold. In the main parts of spring and fall, I'll probably just use these two. And then in the summer, I'll just use the bag. So that's kind of the idea with the system. I still have some modifications that I want to make. When I add the zipper to this, I may add a zipper on the inside of the Special Forces sleeping bag so I can zip it in. My idea with this tiered system too, the final stage of it is going to be a down central zip sleeping bag that's kind of like a hammock cocoon. That's what my wife has and I really like it. But that I would swap out for this bag and still have the other two pieces that all of them would fit together. Lastly, I'm gonna get into this, kind of show you what it looks like, and then maybe I'll do an update later when I add a zipper. So the best way to do this really, like I said, is you just kind of step all the way into the liner. And then I just kind of pull it up to my armpits. And then you just scoot all the way in, and it's really that simple. And then this is what's so neat about this. I love that I can just pull it right in the center here. And there it is. And like I said, for ground dwelling, I sleep on my side, so it's really easy for me to just grab the whole bag and turn, but I'm never laying on the zipper, so I really like that. And then like I said, when you got to get up to go in the middle of the night, you just quickly open, boom. Another thing is the comparison between this and the USGI sleep system. The idea with this versus that, the big draw here, the main two things for me personally is the center zip and then the size and weight. This complete system with the stuff sack and everything comes out to about 4.25, 4.5 pounds, somewhere in there. I weighed it on the scale. It's not super accurate. And I know already I hear people balking at the idea of a 4.5 pound sleep system. The main thing with this that justifies that for me is the versatility. So the entire system here packs up only slightly larger than just the Bivvi from the USGI system. So to me, that's a win. The patrol bag is it's a pretty good deal, honestly, for what it is. It packs down pretty small, it's pretty warm. I feel like pound for pound, the Snugpak SF1 is a little lighter, so that's definitely a draw to me, but it packs smaller for sure. The USGI system was designed to go, way sub-zero, and I think due to the idea that they wanted it to be durable and they knew that GIs weren't going to take very good care of it, they didn't even think of down. They only went synthetic. 9 times out of the 10, the USGI system, I only used the patrol bag and the Bivvi, and at the kind of the edges of the season, it kind of was barely there. So this suits most of that needs and weighs less and packs smaller. And then if I'm gonna go for a winter weight, the USGI bag is just far too big. It takes up about 2/3 of this full-size ruck here. So I'd opt for something that packs way smaller, and that's where I'm gonna be looking at a down bag. Yeah, just to kind of wrap up, I think Snugpak did a bang-up job designing this system and the individual pieces, just in terms of how they're put together and the features that they have. I'm really happy with it so far. And then one last thing that I'll kind of just note here is that I put this together loosely based on a system that they make that you can buy in one unit. It's called the Quart system. And the Quart system uses the same TS1 liner. It uses the Softy 3 Merlin bag, which really the only difference between that and this bag is the central zip or side zip. They both have the reflectotherm, both Softy insulation. Construction is basically identical. And then it has the Snugpak regular Bivvi, which the only difference, like I said, the same materials, just has a central zip for this one. Yeah, so comment down below, tell me what you think of this system, tell me what you like to use, and then do me a favor, if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.